Hey buddies, Moze Zane here, coming at you with another Borderlands 3 video. Today I'm going to be showcasing this amazing weapon that no one seems to use. And just to show you the raw power of this weapon, I'm just going to real quick one-shot Grave Ward in a few seconds here. Let me just put some Elemental Projector on myself, and just like that, Grave Ward's down very easily. I didn't even get a great shot on him, so I was kind of nervous that he wouldn't go down. But before I get into the specifics on the build, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You have no idea how much helps me out, and let's get into it. So first things first, what we're going to be using is the Mongol. The Mongol is an amazing rocket launcher. When shot, it has this one rocket that shoots up to 6 projectiles by itself, and then it keeps spawning those 6 projectiles like volleys. I believe each shot shoots to a volley of 12 to 14 shots. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. To highly optimize this amazing piece of effect that it has, I'm using the Infernal Wish, so every single time we shoot that rocket, it shoots, instead of a total of 2 sets of volleys, it shoots a total of 4 sets, because the Infernal Wish pretty much just adds 1 projectile to our shot, which means another rocket spawns, which allows to summon more volleys, which is very awesome. So like with most launchers, what we're going to try to optimize is splash damage. So the main anointment that you want on any Mongol that you have, I have a Shock and Fire Mongol here, is the after exiting Iron Bear, gain 160% increased splash damage. That translates to just big damage, which is very awesome. On top of that, our Infernal Wish does have amp, so we can increase damage per shot as well with the launcher, because when we have amp, all the volley of bullets, aka the rockets that spawn, also get the amp damage, so that's very useful to have. The Infernal Wish that we're using has action skill and bonus fire damage. The reason why I choose fire damage is because most enemies in the game take increased damage from fire, so fire is usually the most safe bet to take for action skill end, but we actually have another action skill end here, but for shock, so we are able to hit both shields and health pools very nicely. The only thing that would be against us would be armored enemies, but that doesn't really matter because the sheer amount of damage that we deal from one shot can clear anything you want. Now, the other thing that we have is a Mind Sweeper. The reason why I'm not going for a Blastmaster is because the Blastmaster doesn't really offer anything too useful besides the 100% increased splash damage after 55 seconds, which, you know, is very good. But the perks, aka the skill tree points that it can offer, are very niche. So I like to go for Mind Sweeper. Another reason to really set in stone why Mind Sweeper is probably one of the best choices you can have here is because when we land a critical hit, it drops a micro grenade, and that micro grenade does scale off the damage that we dealt. So since we're dealing with a rocket launcher, the rocket launcher is going to deal lots and lots of damage per projectile that hits, and since we're optimizing splash damage, that damage is increased by a lot. On top of that, Mind Sweeper has arguably one of the best action skill points that you can get, which is Fire in the Skag Den. Just 5 points in the Fire Skag Den, I believe some math nerds figured out that increased your damage by 400% when Mayhem 10, which is very solid. So having 5 more on top of that is just 800% more damage at all times for all splash damage we deal. And then the micro grenade does also scale off the splash damage we have and Fire in the Skag Den. So we're really going all in on the splash damage here. And we also have the splash damage and weapon critical damage on this Mind Sweeper, which is very useful. I know some of these are kind of god rolls, so don't worry, there is going to be a save file down below in the comments and description in case you guys want these weapons and pieces of gear. And the final thing, icing on the cake, is Elemental Projector Victory Rush. Now, as many of you know, Elemental Projector is one of my favorite type of artifacts. The Victory Rush is just a good flat damage increase ever since it's been fixed, so it does increase our damage at all times. And then the Elemental Projector is a bit tricky. The reason why I say it's tricky is because the action skill end increased splash damage after we exit Iron Bear immediately goes away after we switch weapons. So the main weapon that you normally want to use to activate Elemental Projector is going to be a sellout, but since we need to switch weapons to actually do that, we lose out on our anointment. So do not use a sellout to actually proc your Elemental Projector. What we're going to be using is just a low level impact grenade of any kind. The one I have here is just a level 40, doesn't deal a lot of damage to us, but the main thing here is that we can keep our Mongol in hand while also activating our Elemental Projector by just throwing a grenade to the floor. Sometimes the grenade doesn't actually proc the element that you want, but most of the time it does. So the main combo I did with the Grave Ward to optimize the damage as much as possible is to enter Iron Bear, immediately exit, so we get our anointments, and before we actually do anything, I throw a grenade at myself to proc the fire damage on ourselves to deal crazy amounts of damage. On top of that, The grenade does have action skill and increased shock damage, so we have some bonus elements and a flat damage increase at all times after exiting Iron Bear, which is very, very nice. The Victory Rush we have does have area of effect damage, incendiary damage, and magazine size. Now, the magazine size isn't necessary, but the two other ones are pretty essential to increase your damage as much as possible, so I highly recommend getting that. I do like magazine size in general, just so we can keep firing as long as possible without having to reload, and we do have some points into means of destruction and redistribution, so our magazine size slowly gets refilled, which can be very, very useful. Now, I want to move on to the skill tree, but I want to real quick emphasize a very, very important skill point to have whenever you use a Mind Sweeper build. Now, the skill point that you want is Pull the Holding Pin, which makes all grenades have a chance to critical hit with a 30% chance. This critical hit chance does not scale off of critical hit damage, so it's just a 2x flat bonus. But the important part here is that the Mind Sweeper can potentially crit off its own grenade. So let's see if we can't get it. So when I shoot him, every once in a while when we crit, it drops a grenade, and that has a chance to crit. Like right there, it just crit. That micro grenade just crit. Now, what the Mind Sweeper does, every single time we crit, it has a 25% chance of dropping a micro grenade. So let me see if I can show you real quick. Basically, what you want to do is to aim for crit shots as much as possible, and every single time you crit shot, you have a chance of those grenades spawning, and those grenades have a chance on spawning and crit as well. When they crit, they have a chance on spawning their own micro grenade, which is very, very useful. So let's see if I can't get this happen at all. Right there, you just saw that? So a normal micro grenade does 356,000 damage with my sellout. When it procs off itself, it goes to 1 million. That's because it gets all the skill point splash damage effects once again, so it kind of like double dips. And then it can double dip off itself. So we actually had a chain where the micro grenade procced off itself 2 times. So it dropped one grenade, it critted, dropped another grenade, did 1 million, and then that one critted and dropped another micro grenade to deal 16 million damage, which is insane because this sellout is only a level 40 and we were able to do 16 million damage just with sheer luck. So the Mind Sweeper is very, very crazy class mod when it procs off. It's kind of like Money Shot back in Borderlands 2. If you got really lucky, you could just shred the enemy in an instant no matter how bad your weapon was. But let's move on to the rest of the skill tree. So the main thing we want here is max points in the Fire Skegden to increase our damage as much as possible. Got 5 points in Torque Cross Promotion. This allows the splash damage to increase as well and have a chance the radius to explode larger, which allows us to clear enemies very, very nicely. So the Mongol is mainly for bossing, I would say, but it does a really good job at clearing an area as well if you can shoot it correctly. The rockets do spread a decent amount, so it does allow for lots of parts of the area to get exploded. Of course, right there, that wasn't that great of an example, but if it does fire from far enough range, it can hit areas that you weren't expecting, like there, it hit down below there, which is pretty nice, below the stairs. And then of course we have 5 points in the Stainless Steel Bear. Any Iron Bear damage from the skill tree will allow us to increase our damage further with a capstone at the end of this. If you guys weren't aware, Short Fuse does deal more damage based on the amount of Iron Bear damage you have, which is very, very nice. Obviously 3 points in the Pull the Holy Pin. I already explained why that's important. Auto Bear just allows you to have a companion, so I always like to have that. And then Grizzled allows us to get our action skill back quickly, but we won't want to get it back too quickly because we had 3 points in the big surplus. When our action skill is on cooldown, it gets 15% more incendiary damage, and that has really weird mayhem scaling to allow us to deal a lot more damage than you would honestly expect. And then back to the blue tree, we got 3 points in mean destruction, so we have more chance to shoot longer, which is very, very nice. As many of you know, the most important thing to get here on the red tree is just 2 points in the Thin Red Line. Never put 3 points in the Thin Red Line, of course, unless you're doing a Deathless build. Thin Red Line, just 2 points, reduces our max HP to 60%. We don't want to go below 50% because then we lose health gating, which allows us to get invulnerability when we hit 10% HP, which is very essential if you want to survive fights. Never put more than just 2 in this point. And then 5 points in Drowning Brass, which is an essential kill skill for Moze. It allows you to deal so much more damage than you would honestly expect. It's just a free 60% more gun damage, which is awesome when you get 3 kills, which is very, very easy. And then of course Experimental Munitions, and then here's a combo piece for Thin Red Line, so we can keep health gating, we keep at 60%, but we still want to put points in this so we can have constant damage increase for Desperate Measures, which is very, very awesome. And the 5 points in the Flak Doctrine, which can stack indefinitely, which is awesome because we can pretty much get infinite gun damage with that, which is very, very useful. And then obviously 5 points in Cloud of Lead, so you don't have to consume ammo sometimes. Stoke the Embers to increase incendiary damage. Specialist Bear to increase our Iron Bear damage as well, but this one doesn't actually affect Short Fuse. I just like to have my Iron Bear deal the most damage as possible. 4 points in the Scorcher RPMs, which does affect Short Fuse, and then 1 point in Rushing Offensive, so you can get constant life steal if you want to sprint, which is very, very good. I would argue it's one of the better points in Moze's green tree. This way you don't have to waste any points in the Vampire or having to worry about needing a Clothing Mining Tracker to have consistent life steal as Moze. You can just sprint for a few seconds, and since you're dealing millions and millions of damage, you get your HP back to 100%, or in this case 60%, just like that. Just to recap everything I said, I would focus using a Mongol on bosses. Sure, it can clear enemies and mobs very, very easily, but there are better launchers to clear mobs like the Plague Bearer or even the Scourge, so I would recommend only using the Mongol for bosses to conserve your launcher ammo, but you can do whatever you want. I do have a lot of fun killing mobs with the Mongol. And once again, all these items will be in a save file in the comments and description if you guys are interested. But as always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.
And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat, facing him up with a moxie melt till he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. War in a cave with a torch on a wall, then a window arrangement of porcelain dolls.